Let's get this party started.
First things first, not our Chris. We miss the old voice. Still, at least it wasn't as awful as the things some of this reboot's all-new cast has done, right? Hey guys, I'm Brad with WickedBinge, and this is every Total Drama Island 2023 contestants' worst deeds ranked. Like the last few entries, we'll be starting with the innocent contestants without enough bad deeds under their belt to cast judgment on. Kicking off this territory is our most innocent contestant, Damien. And yeah, we've got nothing on him actually. He might genuinely be the most chill contestant Total Drama has ever seen. Having zero knowledge of Total Drama beforehand, Damien is shocked by the horrors Chris puts his underage contestants through. His worst deed, if you had to attribute one to him, is just wanting to live.
Yes! I'm going home, baby!
As for the writer's worst deed though, that was eliminating the season's best character way too early. Speaking of gone too soon, next is Caleb, whose worst deed is being too beautiful. In episode 1, Bowie convinced his fellow teammates to get Caleb out while they could, due to his extreme physical prowess. In other words, being a Chad did not play in Caleb's favor, and we don't even blame him for being ticked about being first boot. Heck, we were too. How could you get rid of such a stallion so soon? Anyway, next is the winner of the season, Priya, whose worst deed is ruthless training. While she may be a bit intense, that's about as bad as things get with her. She might chuck some apples at your head or attack you with a broom, but it's the price you pay for agreeing to train with her. Plus, it's not like she did that to a completely innocent character, but we'll get there. Oh, we'll get there. The last character in this territory is Z, whose worst deed is unintentionally betraying everyone, which really is a huge exaggeration. Z is a nice dude who wants to be friends with everyone, even if that means accepting two different alliances.
Sure, we could be partners.
And even if that indirectly means double-crossing both teams in an effort to bring them both together and vote Chris off. Yeah, Z's heart is for sure in the right place, hence his placement in this tier, but his brain definitely isn't. Next, we move on to the not-so-bad deeds. To kick this category off, we have Raj and Wayne, whose worst deed is Wayne pressuring Raj to come out. Yeah, I know, this is really just a one-sided bad deed, but since they are pretty strongly intertwined as characters, we feel comfortable ranking them together anyway. There is no denial here that Wayne's eagerness to support his buddy's romantic pursuits was pretty wholesome, but it's also important to remember that coming out is a pretty big deal.
Raj, go ahead.
Being pressured to do it is not the move, and while this was not done out of any ill intent on Wayne's part, it's still a lesson worth learning. Good on them for being so supportive though. Now, let's shine the spotlight on teenage celebrity icon Nichelle Ladonna with a mild worst deed of deception. Lying isn't cool, I'm sure we can all agree there, but what if you just let people believe something that isn't necessarily true? Well, that's also not cool. And in Nichelle's case, it was uncool enough to make her an early boot of the season. She gladly accepted her teammates' praises for the mad skills she displayed in her movies, but she neglected to correct them on this talent actually belonging to her stunt double, letting them put their faith in her when she wasn't actually capable. Worse still, she blamed her stunt double for her elimination. Justice for Jerry. Ending this category, along with the first half of campers, is Emma, whose worst deed is a grudge against Chase. Let me preface this entry by saying, no, Emma, we do not blame you. Of all the reasons we could think of to hold a grudge against an ex, cutting your brakes for a prank is one of the most valid, but there were a couple of times where this grudge went a little far, mainly in her borderline sadistic desire to watch Chase get hurt.
Stop talking to me!
That would probably rank lower in most cases, but it's Chase. We're not gonna fault you too much for that one. Fret not though, we've got plenty to find fault with here in the really bad deeds. Unless you count being a savage, MK's worst deed is invasion of privacy. If Izzy is the token chaotic neutral character of the OG cast, MK is that of the reboot cast. The name of the game for her is to lay low, while using her skills of pickpocketing and hacking to get useful intel about other campers. She uses this to play mind games with other contestants, manipulating things from the sidelines.
Time to watch this and see what we got.
Invading others' privacy, not cool. But she does also manage to use it to expose Julia's true character. Really, she's a gray area character in every sense of the term. On to the season's least threatening bully, Ripper, whose worst deed is being a bully. He may not pose much of a threat, but bullying isn't cool, no matter how you slice it. Think of all of Owen's gross-out humor with none of his goodwill, and you've got Ripper.
I'm gonna roast this one!
While he does occasionally show some consideration, like when he helped Millie win back Priya, albeit with a horrible plan, it doesn't save him from falling low on our list for how generally unpleasant he is. But being annoying isn't exactly justifying what Axel did, throwing Ripper overboard. It's this season's answer to Eva and Joe. Axel fills the aggressive athletic girl role just fine, albeit with less malice. There is, however, some concern rising with the fact that she kicked Ripper overboard in the second challenge of the season, given the fact that the water was known to be infested with sharks, piranhas, and probably landmines. This could have resulted in death for Ripper. I mean, like 90% of what happens on this show could result in death, but still. Alright, before we get into the worst of the worst, let's quickly talk about Bowie's worst deed of sabotaging Millie and Priya's friendship. To his credit, Bowie was honest from the beginning about his intentions to play the game and play it well. Of all the villains in Total Drama, he very well might have been the most honest.
If there were raptors coming, Chris would not be standing here with us.
But right before the finale, he managed to take Millie's notebook and expose it to Priya, ruining their friendship. We would have put this deed a lot earlier on the list, but here's the thing. For one, Millie had by this point resolved not to write her book, but instead to fully embrace her friendship with Priya. Granted, it's possible Bowie didn't know this, is what I would say if he hadn't deliberately removed the final pages of the notebook, where Millie wrote about how she regretted her decisions. Again, he was always here to win, but that was just cruel. But given the fact that this is a competition, it's just tame enough to keep him out of the truly terrible deeds. Landing just outside the top 3 is a researcher turned bestie, Millie, whose worst deed was sabotaging Priya's raft. Alright, we know what you're thinking, but Brad sabotaging Priya's raft to repair their friendship was Ripper's idea, and further still, neither of them could have known that the river was made of lava! First off, nicely worded thought.
Okay, this just got so good!
Second, it doesn't change the fact that Millie's solution to repairing her broken friendship built on deception is to deceive her again, this time by placing her in potential danger and essentially forcing her to feel guilted into forgiving her. The lava was just the icing on the cake that elevated this from emotional manipulation to borderline attempted murder. The bronze medal of evil goes to Julia's worst deed, playing the game ruthlessly. Remember how we said Bowie was a ruthless competitor, willing to do some nasty stuff to get ahead? Julia's that, but on steroids. She's not only incredibly mean to her fellow contestants once her good vibes influencer facade is torn down, but is willing to use violence to get her way in challenges.
You might as well back out now and save yourself some pain.
In the semifinals, she's willing to leave Bowie behind to get eaten by a spider until he convinces her not to, because he can be useful to her. It's one thing to do anything to win, but when that anything includes leaving others for dead, you've gone from a strong-willed competitor to a soon-to-be criminal. But at least you're not endangering your lover's life, right? Unlike Chase, whose worst deed was cutting Emma's brakes and refusing to apologize for it. Oh, this man. It's one thing to be selfish and ruthless, it's another to be a complete and utter idiot. But being both at the same time, you're a whole nother brand of villainy at that point. Not only did he cut his girlfriend's brakes for the sake of a prank, but he refuses to apologize for it. Yet he still expects her to accept him back with open arms? God, I cannot wait for the inevitable re-breakup. Even with that considered, who could take the top spot but Lauren, scary girl, no last name, and her worst deed of being a literal menace to humanity? This girl's like, you know that one girl in middle school who was trying way too hard to be edgy? Like, how much she loved blood and violence and death? Scary Girl is that girl, but without even a shred of irony.
Sometimes I get carried away.
She attempts to kill several people, from Priya on suspecting that she didn't like her, to Damien, her own teammate, just because she wanted to. Only time will tell what she'll be up to in the rematch season, but I would keep her far away from any jackhammers, or knives, or literally anything, honestly. Just lock her up, please. Please, I'm not even competing, and I'm scared.